Welcome back, everyone, into the deep dive. Today, we're going to be, we're not just going to be talking about basic English grammar. We're going to be looking at some advanced concepts. And this should be, really helpful for anyone out there who wants to level up their communication skills to really add nuance and impact to both their spoken and written English.
Yeah, and probably most of you listening, you have a pretty solid grasp of the fundamentals already, and that's great. What we're going to be doing in this deep dive is taking it a step further, exploring those techniques that native English speakers use, to really emphasize certain points or to sound more formal in certain situations.
Right, exactly. And we're going to be covering a pretty good range of topics here. We're going to be looking at advanced conditionals. We'll talk about how to use inversion for emphasis. We'll even touch on some more advanced ways to use the passive voice. And then we'll get into cleft sentences and this really interesting technique called nominalization.
And, the goal here isn't just for you to understand this stuff in theory. We want you to walk away from this with actionable tips and strategies that you can actually start using right away to improve your own English fluency and to just sound more polished and more confident.
So why don't we just jump right in? Let's start with something that I think a lot of people are at least somewhat familiar with, conditionals. Most of us have learned the first conditional, the classic, if it rains, I'll stay home, that kind of thing. Pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, definitely. The first conditional is all about possibilities, potential outcomes, things that might happen in the future, but we can go beyond that. And the first step beyond the first conditional, is the third conditional.
Third conditional. So how does that one work?
Well, the third conditional is all about hypothetical situations in the past, things that didn't actually happen. The structure usually goes if plus the past perfect and then would have plus the past participle. So like if I had studied harder, I would have passed the exam.
Okay, I see. So it's kind of like exploring those what ifs, those shoulda, coulda, wouldas from the past.
Exactly. If I hadn't eaten that whole pizza, I wouldn't have felt so sick later. It's all about those alternative paths that didn't quite pan out.
Right. And it's really useful for storytelling, I think, to create a sense of drama or regret or even just to explore different possibilities. So it's not just about grammar, it's about the stories we can tell with it. Absolutely.
And then we have something called the mixed conditional. And the first type of mixed conditional blends a past condition with a present result.
Mixed conditional. That sounds intriguing. Like we're playing with different timelines. How does that one work?
Well, it basically connects something that happened or didn't happen in the past to a situation that exists in the present. It often looks like if plus past perfect and then would plus the base form of the verb. If I had taken that job offer, I would be living in California right now.
I see. So the past action of accepting the job offer has a direct impact on my current location. It's like saying, because of a choice I made or didn't make in the past, my present circumstances are different. That's fascinating.
Yeah. It's really interesting how we can manipulate these tenses to talk about cause and effect across time. And it's a great tool for reflecting on decisions, like how did our past choices shape who we are today?
Okay, let's move on to something that I think a lot of people find particularly, maybe even a little bit intimidating. Let's talk about inversion. What exactly does it mean to invert a sentence?
So with inversion, basically what we're doing is changing the typical subject-verb order in a sentence. We often do this to emphasize a certain word or phrase, and you see this a lot in more formal writing, or maybe if someone wants to sound, more dramatic when they're speaking.
Can you give us some clear examples? Because I think that would be helpful to really see how this works in practice.
Sure. So let's say instead of saying she not only lied, but she also stole money, we can invert that and say not only did she lie, but she also stole money. Do you hear how that puts more emphasis on the not only part?
Yeah, definitely. It adds a lot more weight to it. And it sounds more, maybe more literary or something.
Exactly. And another common way we use inversion is with negative adverbs of frequency. So instead of, I have rarely seen such kindness, we can invert that and say, rarely have I seen such kindness. It just kind of elevates the tone a bit, makes it more impactful.
So if you want to sound a little more poetic or you're writing something and you want to add kind of a flourish to your language, inversion is a great tool to have in your arsenal.
For sure.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the passive voice. We've all learned about the basic passive voice, like the ball was thrown by the boy. But are there more more sophisticated or nuanced ways to use the passive voice?
Yeah, there are definitely some more advanced ways to use it. And these structures are really common in, in news reports or in more formal types of communication. They often use reporting verbs like, say, believe or report.
Can you give us an example of what one of those sentences might sound like?
Sure. So instead of saying people say he is a genius, we can use a more advanced passive structure and say he is said to be a genius. Or the committee reported that the project was a success could become the project was reported to have been a success.
I see. So we're kind of shifting the focus away from the actor, the person who's doing the action, and more onto the action itself or the result of the action. Mm-hmm. And it does create a sense of objectivity.
Right. It can make your writing sound more formal, more authoritative, like you're presenting facts.
Okay, let's talk about another really interesting sentence structure. Cleft sentences. What are those? And how do they work?
So cleft sentences are basically a way to emphasize a particular part of a sentence by kind of splitting it into two parts. They often start with phrases like it is or it was, or sometimes a word like what.
Can you give us some examples of what that might sound like?
Yeah. So let's say instead of just saying John ate the cake, you could say it was John who ate the cake. Or instead of I like his sense of humor, you could say what I like is his sense of humor. You're really putting the spotlight on a specific part of the sentence.
Right. It's like you're saying, okay, pay attention to this part. This is the important bit.
Exactly. It's a great way to control the flow of information and really guide your listener or reader to the key point you want to make.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about this technique called nominalization. Yeah. What is that all about?
Well, nominalization basically means turning a verb or an adjective into a noun. So, for example, decide becomes decision, fail becomes failure, that sort of thing.
Okay. That sounds kind of technical, but how does that actually play out in writing or in speech?
Well, you see it a lot in more academic writing or reports or things like that. It can make your sentences sound more concise and maybe a little bit more abstract. So instead of saying he failed to complete the task, you could say his failure to complete the task was a major setback.
Ah, I see. It does sound more formal, I guess, more professional. So this is definitely a good technique to keep in mind if you're writing, essays or reports or anything where you want to project a more authoritative voice.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, a lot of really powerful grammar techniques. But, it's one thing to understand the rules, but it's another thing to actually be able to use them effectively in your own communication. So what are some practical tips that our listeners can take away to actually, to master these concepts and integrate them into their own English?
Yeah, that's a great point. You don't want to just be stuck in the theoretical realm. You want to actually be able to use this stuff. So my first tip might sound a little counterintuitive, but don't get too bogged down in grammar books. They're helpful for understanding the basics, but at some point you just have to start using the language.
Right. It's like anything else, you learn by doing.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn, know. The more you experiment, the more comfortable you'll become.
So what would you suggest, for people who are maybe a little hesitant to just, jump right in and start making mistakes?
Well, I'd say pay close attention to how native English speakers use grammar, in movies and TV shows, in podcasts, even just listening to conversations. And there are some great tools out there now that can help with this, like the Language Reactor extension for YouTube. It lets you see subtitles in 2 languages at the same time, and it even gives you grammatical explanations.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool tool. And I think that's something that can be really helpful, especially if you're a visual learner.
Definitely. And another great way to practice is to actually record yourself speaking. Choose a specific grammar point that you want to work on, maybe one of the conditionals or, inversion, and try to use it naturally in a sentence. And then listen back to yourself and see how you did.
So basically turning yourself into your own language lab.
Yeah, exactly. You can even get a friend involved and practice together.
And, obviously reading is really important too, but I know a lot of people, especially when they're learning a language, they kind of get bogged down by all the, the grammar rules and the vocabulary and everything. So what would you say to someone who's maybe a little hesitant to just pick up a book and start reading?
Well, I think it's important to choose material that's interesting and engaging to you. Don't feel like you have to start with the classics or anything like that. Find a magazine or a blog or even just, a comic book that you enjoy and just start reading. And don't worry too much about understanding every single word. Just focus on getting the general gist of the text.
Right. And I think it's also important to not get discouraged. If you come across words or phrases that you don't understand, just keep a dictionary handy and look them up as you go.
Definitely. And,
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reread passages or even whole chapters if you need to. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more comfortable you'll become.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about, studying grammar and practicing and reading and all that. But I think it's also important just, to have fun with language, to play with it, to experiment, to see what you can do with it.
Absolutely. Language is a creative tool. And the more you play with it, the more fluent and confident you'll become.
So, don't be afraid to try out new things, to make up your own sentences, to write poems or stories, or even just silly little notes to yourself. The more you use language, the more it'll become a natural part of your life.
I completely agree.
Okay, I think that's about all the time we have for today. But before we go, I just want to reiterate one really important point. Mastering advanced grammar isn't about being perfect. It's about being able to communicate effectively, to express yourself clearly and confidently. And that's something that everyone can achieve with a little bit of effort and a lot of practice.
And don't forget that language is constantly evolving. So even native English speakers are always learning new things and refining their skills. So be patient with yourself, enjoy the process, and most importantly, have fun.
And on that note, we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
All right, so English grammar, right. It can be a bit of a bumpy road, especially when you're trying to level up past that intermediate stage.
It really is. Like, you've got the basics down, but then things get kind of subtle,
Totally.
Yeah.
And you want to sound natural, confident, not like you're constantly checking the rule book in your head.
For sure. So we've been digging into all sorts of resources, trying to figure out, where do people tend to get tripped up?
Right, like what are those grammar points that just keep causing headaches?
Yeah. And we're going to share those trouble spots, along with some hopefully easy ways to remember the rules. And best of all, we're going to hear how this stuff actually plays out in real conversations.
Exactly. We want to give you practical tools, not just theory, but things you can actually use to make your English, better. More like how native speakers use it.
Yeah, smooth and natural.
Okay, so let's dive right in. One of the biggest areas that trips people up, I think, is the whole present perfect versus past simple thing.
Yeah, that's a classic. It's all about, how an action relates to right now, the present moment.
Right.
So past simple, that's straightforward. Something happened in the past, it's finished, done. We know when.
Like, I ate lunch at 1 p.m., boom, done.
Exactly. But then we've got the present perfect, which is trickier because it's got this connection to now.
Yeah, it's like the past action still matters in some way.
Right. Maybe it has a result that we can see or feel now, or maybe the exact time isn't that important.
So it's, I've eaten lunch, meaning I'm not hungry now.
Yeah. And that's where learners often get stuck, because they might naturally think in terms of the past simple, even when the present is a big part of what they're trying to say.
So is there a way to sort of wrap your head around when to use which one?
I think one way is to think of the present perfect as unfinished business in a way, something that's still relevant now.
Unfinished business.
Yeah, like the past action has a direct impact on the present, or it happened during a period of time that continues up to now.
Oh, I see.
And a little trick, there's certain words that often go hand in hand with the present perfect, like ever, never, already, yet, just, since, for.
Ah, those are good clues.
The kind of signal that you might be dealing with that past to present connection.
Okay, so some examples like, I've lived here for 5 years. That makes sense because for 5 years is a time period stretching to now.
Right, but I lived here for 5 years means you don't live there anymore.
Because it's all in the past. Okay, that helps.
It's all about that present consequence or ongoing time frame.
Gotcha. All right, moving on. Another tricky trio, used to, be used to, and get used to.
Oh yeah, these guys. So similar looking, but not so similar in meaning.
And they all have to do with habits and routines and getting comfortable with things, right?
Exactly. And here it's really about grasping how English verbs work.
Yeah, the nuances.
Used to is always pointing back to a past habit or a situation that's no longer the case. So I used to play the piano, but I don't anymore. It's a closed chapter.
Okay, so it's something that was true but isn't anymore.
Precisely. But be used to, that's describing your current state of being familiar with something. I'm used to living in a big city, means that's my normal now. I don't find it strange or difficult anymore.
It's just what you're accustomed to.
Right. And then we have get used to, which is about the process of becoming comfortable with something.
I'm getting used to waking up early, meaning it's still a bit of a struggle maybe, but I'm adjusting.
Oh, okay. So it's the transition period.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a little story would help.
Okay.
So I used to eat cereal every morning, but now I'm used to having toast. But honestly, it took a while. I had to get used to it.
Yeah, perfect. You see how those three together can tell a whole story of change over time?
That's really cool.
From a past habit to a present comfort level, and then that in-between phase of adjusting.
Nice. Okay, let's compare things, literally. Comparatives and superlatives.
Essential for like ranking things and expressing degrees of something.
Like better, worse, faster, slower, all those words. Right. So comparatives are for when you're comparing just two things. Usually you add to shorter adjectives, or you use more before longer ones.
Like, this movie is more exciting than that one.
Exactly. You're focusing on those two specific movies. But superlatives, they're the champions.
The best, the worst, the most amazing.
Yeah. They put one thing at the top or bottom of the whole group. And here, often you'll add est to short adjectives, or the most before longer ones.
Like, this is the most delicious cake I've ever tasted.
Exactly. And here's a huge tip. Always use the before superlative. Always.
Always, always.
Always. It's the best, the worst, the most interesting, not just best, worst, most interesting.
Oh, I see people forgetting that the all the time.
It's such a common mistake.
But it makes a big difference.
It really does. It's like the pinpoints exactly which one is the ultimate winner.
Okay.
You know?
I'll try to remember that the.
Good. Now, how about to and enough? These little words are all about quantity.
Too much, not enough, that kind of thing.
Right. So to means there's more than what's needed or wanted, and it often has a bit of a negative vibe.
Like, this soup is too salty means I can't enjoy it.
Exactly. It goes beyond the limit. And enough means there's the right amount, usually in a good way. I have enough money for a coffee means I can buy it.
It's sufficient.
Exactly. And one tiny detail with too, the adjective comes right after. Too tired, too spicy. But with enough, the adjective comes before. Strong enough. Funny enough.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, it can trip you up if you're not careful.
Okay, last one for this grammar essentials round. Modals for advice.
Oh, these are super useful. Like should, ought to, had better, could. All those little helpers for giving suggestions.
Yeah, it's like, how do you tell someone to do something or not do something without sounding bossy?
Exactly.
So should is kind of the standard one, right? Like, you should get more sleep.
Yeah, it's pretty neutral. And ought to is similar to should, but maybe tiny bit more formal, or maybe suggesting a slightly stronger obligation.
Okay, so it's like, you really ought to call your mother.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then had better is definitely more serious.
Like a warning almost.
Right. You'd better study for that test implies there will be bad consequences if you don't.
Oh, I see. It's got that urgency. And could is just a suggestion, like one possibility among many.
Yeah, you could try this new restaurant. It's not pushing as hard.
Okay, so those are some important building blocks. But how do we actually get better at this stuff?
That's the key question, right? It's one thing to know the rules, but another to actually use them.
So practical tips. I like that.
Yeah, let's make it actionable.
First up, I think trying to tackle everything at once is just a recipe for disaster.
Totally overwhelming.
So one grammar point per week. Pick one and make it your friend for 7 whole days.
I love that. Focus is everything. Like this week, it's present perfect. I'm going to use it every chance I get.
Yeah. And that way you're not only practicing, but you're also becoming more aware of it when you hear other people using it.
You start to notice those patterns in real life.
Exactly. And another thing, don't get stuck with those boring textbook examples.
Oh, those are so lifeless.
Yeah, like he has eaten the apple. Who cares?
Right. So instead, make the grammar personal. Connect it to your own life.
Like, I've never been to Australia, or I've always wanted to learn how to dance.
Now, those are sentences that are going to stick with you.
Because they mean something to you. They're not just abstract grammar rules.
And this leads to a really cool tip. Talk to yourself in English.
Out loud.
Well, you can whisper if you're in public, but the idea is you're your own practice partner.
Right.
No pressure.
No judgment either.
Right. So describe your day, your thoughts, your plans, using the grammar you're working on.
So like today I've already walked the dog and done the laundry. Later I'm going to try that new recipe.
Perfect. You're practicing, you're building fluency, and you're doing it in a way that's actually meaningful to you.
And I think this next one is super helpful, especially for those really tricky grammar points. Flashcards.
Flashcards are a classic for a reason. They work.
Especially for those sets of words that are easy to mix up, like used to, be used to, get used to.
Write the grammar point on one side, and then a good, clear example on the other.
And a picture, maybe, to help you remember.
Yeah, visuals are powerful. It's like adding another layer to your memory.
Okay, last tip. This one's about mindset. Be kind to yourself.
Oh, this is so important. Language learning is a journey. It's not a race. There will be bumps along the way.
And those bumps are often mistakes, which we all make.
All the time.
So don't freak out when you mess up. Just pause, correct yourself, and keep going.
It's like a little mental edit. No big deal.
Exactly. You're learning, you're improving, and that's what matters.
It's about progress, not perfection.
All right, so now that we've got those practical tips down, let's hear some of these grammar points in action.
Yeah, let's see how they play out in real conversations.
So first up, present perfect and past simple.
Okay, imagine this. Have you ever been to Paris?
Yes, I went there in 2019.
Oh, nice. I've never been to Europe.
You should go. It's amazing.
See how smoothly those two tenses work together?
Totally. It sounds natural.
Because it is.
Okay, now, used to and be used to. So do you like living in such a big city?
Now I do. But I wasn't used to all the noise at first. I've gotten used to it, though.
Yeah, I used to live in a small town, so I can imagine.
There you go. The different meanings are clear, and it just flows naturally.
Awesome. Comparatives and superlatives. This pizza is better than the one we had last week.
Really? I think it's the best pizza in town.
Short and sweet.
And grammatically correct.
Okay, how about two and enough?
Okay. So, I can't drink this coffee. It's too bitter.
Maybe you didn't add enough sugar.
Ah, good point.
And finally, giving advice. I'm so tired all the time.
You should try going to bed earlier.
Yeah, I know. I ought to. And I had better stop looking at my phone right before I sleep.
That had better really emphasizes that it's important.
It's like, if you don't, you're going to suffer the consequences. All right, ready for a little challenge? Let's do a quick grammar game. I'll give you a sentence, and you try to rephrase it using one of the grammar points we've covered.
I love it. Let's see how our listeners do.
Okay, first one. I visited London last year. How would you say that using the present perfect?
I'll give you a moment to think.
The answer is, I've been to London. Did you get it?
Good job if you did.
Next. He can't run the marathon. He's very tired. Rephrase that using enough.
Think.
And the answer is, he's not strong enough to run the marathon.
Nice.
Okay, here's a tricky one. I didn't like spicy food before, but now I enjoy it. How would you say that using used to?
Take your time.
The answer. I'm used to spicy food now.
Did you get that one?
Okay, how about this one? It's a good idea to drink lots of water. What's another way to say that using a modal? You could say, you should drink lots of water.
Or, you ought to drink lots of water.
Or, you ought to drink lots of water. Lots of options.
And last one. My car is slow. Your car is faster. How would you compare your car to mine?
This is an easy one. The answer, your car is faster than mine.
Excellent. If you played along, give yourself a pat on the back. That kind of active practice is so helpful.
It really makes those grammar rules come alive, you know?
It's not just memorization, it's understanding.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, remember that getting better at English grammar is a journey. It takes time, it takes practice, and it takes patience.
Don't stress about being perfect. Just keep learning, keep practicing, and keep talking.
Exactly. The more you use English, the more natural and automatic those grammar rules will become.
So keep those strategies we talked about in mind. 1 grammar point a week, personal examples, talk to yourself, flashcards, and be kind to yourself when you make mistakes.
And remember, the ultimate goal is to communicate clearly and confidently. That's what really matters.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it useful.
If you did, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future episodes. And share with your friends, classmates, anyone who might benefit.
And keep on learning, keep on practicing, and keep on speaking English.
And one last thought for you. Think about the grammar point we talked about today that felt the trickiest. This week, really pay attention to how native speakers use it. Listen for it in conversations, notice it in articles, and try using it yourself. You'll be amazed at how much just that little bit of focus can help.
Welcome to another deep dive. We're going super basic today, like foundational, English grammar for beginners.
Yeah, we've got some really good resources for this that we're going to be diving into.
Like if you're just starting out or just want to make sure you've got the essentials down, this is going to be the deep dive for you.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to kind of like pull out the easiest rules, the most helpful tips, and some real world examples that will help you speak with confidence from day one.
Yeah, you can start speaking English right away.
So I guess the best place to start is with to be.
To be, yeah.
Am is are.
I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
It's one of the most essential verbs in English, to be.
Yeah, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So I am, you are, he, she, it is.
We are there.
We are, they are.
Yeah, just lay it all out there.
And the material we have gives some really, really clear examples like, I am a student, you are my friend, she is happy, we are tired, they are teachers.
Right, these are the kinds of sentences that you'll be using all the time.
And they're very basic, very simple.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you can just plug in anything there. Like, like, I am hungry. My name is your name.
Yeah.
We are friends.
Exactly.
It just becomes like...
So it becomes less like a rule and more like a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. So let's move on to simple present tense.
Okay, simple present.
This is how we talk about things that we do regularly, habits, daily routine.
Right.
So I eat breakfast. She walks to school. We play games.
Right.
But then here's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
He, she, it.
Yes, the S.
Yeah.
So he plays football, she watches TV.
Plays watches.
Adds that S on the end.
Yeah. So like every time it's he, she, or it, you got to remember that S.
Exactly. That's a common mistake that new English speakers make.
Oh, for sure.
So if you can remember that every time it's he, she, it in the present tense,
yeah,
you're going to get that verb right. You're going to add that S.
You're going to sound so much more natural.
You are.
And again, making it relatable, you wake up at...
whatever time he works in a whatever.
Right. Connect it to yourself.
Yeah.
And to your life.
Yeah.
That's how it becomes real.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to simple past.
Simple past.
This is how we talk about actions that are finished.
So like telling stories.
Right. Things that happened before now.
Yeah, yesterday and beyond.
Exactly.
So I watched a movie yesterday. She studied last night. They walked to the park.
Right. So you've got that eat, ed ending on a lot of these verbs.
Watched, studied, walked.
Yeah. So that's the regular pattern. But of course, English has its irregular verbs. Where the past tense forms are just different.
Yeah.
And our source material here highlights a couple of common ones. Go becomes went. Eat becomes ate.
Yeah, those are good ones to just memorize.
Those are really common ones that you'll hear all the time, so it's good to learn them early on.
Okay, cool. Next up, is, there, are?
There is, there are.
A way to talk about what's around.
Right. This is how you talk about existence.
Yeah.
So there is if you're talking about a singular noun, one thing.
Okay.
For example, there is a cat on the table.
Okay.
But if it's plural, more than one thing you're going to use. There are.
Got it.
There are 3 books.
One cat. There's 3 books. There are.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a really great way, I think, to just describe the place that you're in.
Yeah.
So there's a TV in my room. There are 5 students in the class.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's a way to, expand your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Get comfortable with sentence structure.
Uh-huh.
So the last one we're going to cover in this basic grammar section is can and can't.
Can.
Can't.
Expressing ability.
Yeah. I can swim. She can drive.
Right. And can't means you don't have the ability.
Right. She can't drive.
Exactly. And the source material points out,
Uh-oh.
You don't need to add an S or an ed or anything like that. It's always just going to be can plus the base form of the verb. So can swim, can drive, can eat, can go.
I can speak English.
Exactly.
I can play the guitar.
Yes.
There you go.
I like it.
So think about yourself and people you know.
Yeah.
What can they do? What can't they do?
Awesome.
Okay, so we've covered the basics.
On basic.
Let's move on to part 2.
Okay.
Tips to learn faster.
Ah, yes, because learning a language is a journey.
It is.
And it's nice to have some tools in your toolkit.
It is.
Yeah.
And this source material has some really great tips.
Yeah.
So the first one is start small.
Yeah.
Don't try to learn everything at once.
Don't overwhelm yourself.
It will become overwhelming if you do.
Yeah, just take little bites.
Exactly.
So the source material suggests learn one verb,
Right.
one sentence, or even one word a day.
Right.
Like,
Keep it manageable.
yeah, so I am tired.
Uh-huh.
You are smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The second tip is use real sentences.
Yes.
So don't just be memorizing abstract grammar rules.
Right.
And sentences like he eats apples.
Right. Make it about you.
Yeah, I eat apples every day.
Use your own name. My name is your name. I am from your country.
That's so much more
Right.
interesting and memorable.
It is.
Okay, cool. Next up is speak out loud.
Speak out loud.
Talk to yourself.
That's right.
Correct.
So however you can,
Yeah.
just practice your speaking.
The source material gives the examples. I am going to the store. I feel good today.
Right. Just very simple sentences. But the more you speak, the more you're going to learn.
Yeah.
Even if it's just to yourself.
Even if you sound crazy.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah.
The next tip is repeat and listen.
Yeah.
So listen to English podcasts like this one, English songs, English speakers, if you can.
Right.
And the source material suggests repeating what you hear.
Yes. Try to copy it.
And just copy the pronunciation.
Exactly.
Even if you don't understand everything, you're still getting familiar with the sounds
That's right.
of English.
Yeah, and your ear will just get better at understanding.
Yeah.
Even if you don't get all the words,
Yeah.
you'll still get a lot out of it.
Cool. The last tip in part 2 is use flashcards or notes.
Flashcards or notes.
This is such a good idea.
It is.
So you can create flashcards for new vocabulary
Uh-huh.
or even grammar rules.
Right.
On one side, you could go on the other side one.
Exactly.
And then maybe a sentence like, I went to the park yesterday.
Yeah, sample sentence.
Just to see it
Yeah.
in action.
Yeah.
And the source material recommends practicing a small number of cards per day.
Keep it manageable.
Don't overwhelm yourself.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay, so those are some really good tips.
Yeah, I think those are really helpful.
Yeah, so start small, use real sentences, speak out loud, repeat, and listen. Use flashcards or notes.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's move on to part 3,
Okay.
where we actually see some of this grammar in action.
Right. Simple English conversations.
Yeah.
So this is where you can actually see how this stuff works in a normal situation. Yeah. So we've got some short, easy dialogues here
Okay, cool.
that show exactly how to use this grammar.
Okay.
So let's start with 2B.
Okay.
A says hi. What's your name?
B says, I'm Anna. I am a student.
A says, nice to meet you. I'm Tom. I'm from Canada.
Cool. I am from Brazil.
Right. So just very simple introductions.
Yeah.
Different forms of to be.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So next up, we have simple present.
Okay.
A asks, what do you do every day?
B says, I wake up at 7, I eat breakfast, and go to work.
A says, me too. I work at a school.
So talking about their daily routine.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. And then moving on to simple past.
Okay.
A asks, what did you do yesterday?
B says, I watched a movie and cleaned my room.
A responds, nice. I cooked dinner and called my friend.
Simple past tense,
All right.
showing completed actions.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Next up, there are.
Yeah.
A asks, what's in your room?
B says, there is a bed and a desk. There are 2 windows.
And A just says, sounds nice.
I.
So there's for singular items, there are for plural.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And then lastly, we have can and can't.
Okay.
A asks, can you cook?
B says, yes, I can. I can make pasta.
Cool. I can't cook very well.
It's easy. I'll teach you.
Right. So showing ability and lack of ability.
Cool. I like it.
So those are our basic grammar points in action.
Yeah, and then we have a bonus dialogue about making friends.
Yes.
I love this.
This is great.
So A says, hello, are you new here?
B says, yes, I am.
Do you want to get coffee?
Sure. I would love to.
Let's go.
So simple language.
Yeah.
Creating a connection.
I love it.
Okay.
So let's move on to part 4,
Okay.
which is a fun grammar game
Yes.
called Say It.
Say it.
Okay, so I'm going to say an English sentence that has a mistake in it,
Uh-huh.
and then you, the listener,
Yes.
are going to say it correctly.
That's right.
Okay.
Test yourself.
Yeah, so are you ready to play?
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go. Number 1, he go to school.
What's the right way to say that?
He goes to school.
He goes to school.
Remember, he, she, it.
Add that S.
Yeah, the S.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2, she can sings.
Is that right?
She can sing.
She can sing.
Just sing.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3, yesterday I ate pizza.
Yesterday.
Yesterday I ate pizza.
I ate pizza.
Past tense.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, there's 3 dogs.
3 dogs is that singular or plural?
There are 3 dogs.
There are.
Okay, last one. I can't speak English.
Can't speak.
I can't speak English.
I can't speak English.
How did you do?
Yeah.
Hopefully you got most or all of them right.
Yeah, if you got all of them right,
You're doing great.
you're on your way.
Amazing work.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
our source material compares learning English to building a house.
Oh, I like that.
Brick by brick.
Yeah.
So every sentence you learn, every word you learn, it's like adding another brick to your foundation.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and so just like building a house, you've got to be consistent, you've got to keep at it.
Yeah.
So our source material really emphasizes daily speaking.
Even if it's just for a little bit each day.
Exactly. Even a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, consistency is key.
It is.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into beginner English grammar.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
We really hope that it was helpful and encouraging
We hope so.
on your English learning journey.
Yeah.
So if you found it helpful, please share this episode with your friends or classmates who are learning English.
Yeah. Spread the word.
Let's get everybody speaking English.
Yes.
All right, well, keep practicing, keep listening, and most importantly, keep speaking English.
Keep speaking.
Yes. And here's a final thought for you. What is one new English sentence that you feel totally confident saying out loud right now after this deep dive?
Think about it for a minute. Try to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, well, we'll see you in the next deep dive.
See you later.
Bye.